everybody. Welcome to the book club.
Yay.
It's not Geeks anymore. We're just going to have to find another name. Should it be Felicitations Book Club? Bonnie, what should we do this?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I have headphones on, so now I'm like talking extra loud for no reason.
Oh, great. How are you?
I'm okay. Hey, are you underwater?
Oh, no. I do have a leak in my house. I thought
Yeah.
that I had avoided it, and unfortunately, there is a leak somewhere, but I can't find it. It just ruined it, like blew out a power surge protector thing.
Oh
So
no.
it's
Oh
okay.
no.
I just don't know where the leak is. So it's going to rain tonight again. What about you? Are you leaking?
Kinda. I mean, my apartment complex, I think, is built out of gingerbread because it just soaks up the water. It doesn't really thank God it's not dripping. But
Yeah.
the last storm we had, I got proactive and I bought waterproof sealant that's like a
Uh-huh.
spray-on sealant that you can use for walls and ceilings if there's like a leak. And so I used that because sometimes when maintenance goes up on the roof,
Uh-huh.
they say they fix the leaks, but I don't think they know what they're doing. Like, I wish I could fly.
Yeah.
Like, I have a drone, and I'm so tempted to fly it up there when they're working to see if they're just drinking beer or if they're actually fixing anything. Because,
Yeah.
as we know, in LA, if you're renting,
You're
there's
not a
not,
priority. It's not a priority to
you're
actually
not.
maintain anything. Yeah.
And
It's almost
actually, they don't want to fix anything because then if you leave, they can raise rent. So
mm.
yeah, so I got a little DIY, and I was like, well, I'll just spray it, and then they came in and painted over it, and so far it looks okay. But because I live in a loft, my ceilings are way too high. I can't get the other ones, and they couldn't paint over it because their
No.
ladder wasn't high enough. So they have to get the roof people in here, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just
Oh
let's just
boy.
wait till the storms are over before you start painting over a leak that you
Wow.
haven't fixed.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It's
So do you have like buckets around? Because I had buckets in my house for like
I do
2
I do
weeks.
not. I do not. There's just weird stains. It looks like a giant spilled some coffee on my ceiling. Is
Oh
basically.
no. I
Yeah,
have
so
some bubbles on my ceiling, and I'm just like I poked one, and then the water came out. I was like, oh, there's definitely a leak because there's water
yeah.
coming out of that ceiling. Yeah.
And I have a popcorn ceiling, so who knows, but I also am on top floor of a loft, so it's
Uh-huh.
like at least I'm not having to deal with bottom floor problems like flooding.
Oh yeah.
Which we had a little bit of, but I don't know. I like this weather. I lived in San Francisco, as you know, for 25 years. So
Yeah.
I'm used to rain. I'm from the Midwest originally, so I'm used to snow. So when people were like, it's snowing, there's snow on the Hollywood sign, I was like, oh, that's so cool. But then I was like, no one knows how to drive in any of
Yeah.
this.
Oh no, they don't know how to drive. I mean,
Yeah.
they get strangely aggressive and then overly cautious. It's like a combination that is so annoying more
I
than
mean,
anything.
I ran some errands on Friday. As you know, I don't have a car, so I Lyft and Uber everywhere. And I took a Lyft mainly because I was lazy, and also I didn't want to walk through the really sketchy part of North Hollywood to get to the pharmacy and back.
Yeah,
So
there's some sketch. That's some sketch up there.
it's so sketchy. So I went in a Lyft, and it was before the storm started on this Friday, the most recent storm. So I managed to go to the bank and go to the pharmacy and go to the grocery store, and then I came home. But while we were driving home, so much hydroplaning, and
Oh.
there's still street racing at night. They did it during the storm. I'm like, are you what? Is this because the new Fast and Furious is coming out? Why are you guys
I
doing
don't
this?
know. Also, for some reason, I renovated my garage, and I did a really not very fancy renovation before, but they really had to do a good job this time because they built above the garage.
Mhm.
So not as many animals get in here. That Ryko and my other, Ryan and anybody who's been in my office made fun of me because there were always so many spiders and dead things. Anyway, but one thing that still comes in is worms. So I'm looking around and I'm noticing dead worms everywhere in my office, and I'm just like, well, there's a seal on the bottom of all the doors. How are they slipping in?
Wait, are you talking about worms coming in from the outside or carpet worms?
No, worms coming in from the outside when it's raining into my office.
Oh, I see. They're just trying to find a nice place to hang out to keep away from
Yes.
birds.
I
Maybe you
don't
should just
know.
just get a bird, get a cockatoo. Let it.
I will never have a bird. Ever.
Are
They're
you
really bad
scared
for
of
your lungs. They're just bad for your lungs. Did you know that?
what? What do they do to your lungs?
If you have a bird in the house, they have a lot of dander and it's bad for your lungs. You get like lung, problems.
Birds have dander?
I I,
I
I
didn't
don't
know
know if
that.
it's birds, but definitely they cause lung problems. I promise you. Also, my grandma has birds and they're so loud and they poop everywhere. I'm just like, it's not for me. Also, they should be outside. Fly somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like it's bird prison whenever I see them in a cage. It's always
Yeah.
sad.
I
But
don't
I
feel
feel
that
like
way about fish as much. I'm like,
no,
you
well,
know
they
what?
need it. That's terraforming. That's just for them to
Yeah.
exist. But like anything in a cage, like hamsters or I don't know, cage animals. I don't know what
Hmm.
cage animals would be because I tend to let my pets just
Rodents.
yeah, like yeah, that would be a good example. Though I did live with someone in college who had a rat because that was like 90s goth type
Oh
thing.
yeah. Lots of people
Is
have
that
rats.
you either had a rat or a ferret, and we had both. Not at the same
Ugh.
time. Not at the same time, because the ferret would have killed the rat.
Yeah,
But
ferrets are like really, they can be nasty.
ferrets are snakes with fur. They go after
Yeah.
your
Ugh.
ankles. They smell
Blech.
bad. They smell
Blech.
musky. Even when you
Blech.
musk them, they still smell bad. Yeah, it's
No, no, not for me.
I just go for dogs. Dogs are fine.
Yeah.
Dogs are great. How's
Dogs
your
are good.
dog?
Although my
You
dog,
got a
she's
new
starting to
dog.
get, yeah, but she's starting to get confident, which I don't like. I
What do
like that
you mean?
she's settled in. She knows we're not getting rid of her. And now she's prancing everywhere and lunging at the cat and just being a little too confident, little too aggressive. Like she needs to be on her like best shelter dog behavior. I need her to have low self-esteem and need me to approve of her in case I get rid of her. That's why I wanted a shelter dog. I needed that
Oh,
attitude. And now she's like, I'm gonna nip at the cat and you're gonna give me a treat. Ha
yeah.
ha.
Yeah. I mean, how old is it? Is it a puppy?
She's like, they say between 1 and 2. So she
Oh
still has
yeah.
a lot of puppy
Yeah,
traits.
she's got puppy energy. That as soon
Yeah.
as she gets used to your cat, it won't be like Lord of the Flies over there.
Well, she does watch the cat eat her food every night. So I'm like, okay, she's not going to kill the cat, but she unrealistically thinks the cat's going to play with her. And she kind of like
Yeah,
nips at her head. And then the cat hisses and it's just like drama. And then the kid goes over there and screams and that makes the dog more hyper. And then they start running around. It's a zoo.
yeah. I mean, you do kind of have to have the cat and dog at the same age, at the same time, at the same
Yeah.
arrival at your house for
Yeah.
that. Like, I can't remember her name. It's one of the co-hosts of My Favorite Murder. She has an Instagram where she posts her dog and cat wrestling,
Oh,
and it's the cutest thing ever. It's like a small dog, like a terrier, and like a cat that's as big as a terrier. But
see, that would be so
they
cool.
were raised together. So they have
Yeah.
these weird like chasing things where the dog runs around, the cat hides and then jumps out and scares the dog, and then they chase each other and then they wrestle, and like that is like the quintessential thing I would love. But I had a dog that just thought cats were toys and to
Yeah.
chase them, didn't think of them as
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
well, there was no democracy in the house
Yeah.
when there was a cat. So
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah. So I don't know. But I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just don't
No,
get a
I mean, I don't think she's gonna hurt the cat, but you never know.
no.
She's just really confident.
But just don't get a ferret. If you add a ferret to the
Never.
mix, I think ferrets are illegal in California anyway, aren't they?
They
Before
are actually sugar gliders and ferrets. I don't think you can have them in California. I would never want a rodent. Anything that has teeth continuously growing is not for me.
I'd like a sugar glider now that you said that.
I mean, they are really cute, but yeah,
Yeah.
again, I think they stink. Again,
They
stinky.
all stink. All animals. I mean, I don't know.
I love it. My daughter, she goes in the backyard, and I love it because her job now is to tell me if there's poop in the yard, so I go and pick it up. And her screaming, "Diarrhea! Diarrhea, Mama!" is kind of my favorite thing.
Wow, that's a big word. I'm glad she knows it.
Diarrhea! Diarrhea!
When we were kids, we used to call that poop river.
Oh, poop river. I'm gonna call it a poop river from now on.
Right? I don't know.
Yeah, I ate some
Yeah.
bad curry and I had a poop river.
Yeah, see, this is what happens when I don't have kids, but all my friends have kids. I come up with better terms, but I'm
Yeah.
not there to have to live through it. It's like when I give my friends kids drums. I don't do that anymore, but I
Don't do
used to do
that.
that.
Oh, Brian does that. Brian Day does that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We do have a live audience when we do book
Oh
club.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
And
the book.
Cleesmill did a funny diarrhea.
Oh, that's nice.
He made it made it look like so classy, but when you say it out loud, it's not so classy.
That's a drag queen name. That should be our
Diarrhea.
yeah. That's like what's her name? I just lost it. Oh my god. Speaking of not being able to keep your attention, I'm very interested what you thought of this book because I have thoughts.
Oh my God, this book. Okay, so let's be a good book club host. Now, I do want to say there's a reason why we're not called geeks, and I'm not going to go into it very much. The
Do
geeks.
we not do that anymore? Did I mislabel it in the tweet?
No, it's okay. We haven't talked about the rebrand, but the word geeks referred to the creator coin that I was using as a Patreon, which the company just went under, closed down, took all the money. I'm not going to go into more details. I will say it was a learning lesson, and I'm happy and appreciate everyone to support it. I learned a lot. Let's move on. Never do anything like do again. Okay?
I do want to say something real quick.
Okay.
Only out of all my friends and all the people I interact with on a daily basis or quarterly basis or whatever, you were the only person that convinced me to do this because I don't know anything about Bitcoin, NFTs, cryptocurrency, any of that bullshit.
Yeah.
So when you were like, "Hey, we'll do it as a fun experiment," I was like, "Okay, cool." And I would look at it every once in a while, but I thought of it as like itchy and scratchy money, right? Like
Exactly.
Monopoly. It's like Monopoly money. It's not real money. So I didn't
thought
really...
of it like that too. Although it did accumulate in a way that I'm not going to go into details, but I didn't get any money out of it, guys. So just know that it was a grand experiment.
Yeah.
And just pretend it was a Patreon for a year, and that's what it was. And the good thing is that I tried to do it as morally as possible, and every single thing I did, I was like, will somebody accuse me of taking advantage of people if I do this? And then I would ixnay it. So I think that, for the one-time membership fee, we got a year and a half of content, and we're still going. So if somebody wants to join the book club, come on in. It's open to everybody. Although we are going to move it to Twitch, I think, Twitch Live. Because I think we're going to get a bigger audience and everybody will enjoy reading the books together a little bit more.
I'm on Twitch. I just haven't Twitched yet. Like I go to your Twitches. Like I watch you play video games all the time, but I don't.
Yeah.
Really
I think it'll be
partake.
Tuesday night. I think I'm going to keep the Tuesday night hangouts. Like doing my, I'll just do all of them live on Twitch and then do streams afterwards. So although Creativity Hour is kind of fun with a small, intimate group on the Discord, so I might keep it on Discord. Anyway, I'll take a consideration. Anyway, moving on. So we're going to call it maybe Felicitations Book Club. What do you think?
Because I was just going to say, don't all the past episodes, they're for free to listen to on Felicitations already, right?
Yeah. So I might just say Felicitation Book Club. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a longer word.
Or should we do... Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was going to say we could combine our names, but then I was like, no, because that's going to sound weird and creepy.
Bolicia?
Bolicia. That sounds like a disease. That sounds like... botulism, Feliciaism. I don't know. I'm not good at naming things. I mean, we did have a book club called Vaginal Fantasy, which got us banned over and over again.
We trended on Twitter a couple times just because people didn't understand what it was, but
yeah, I mean those early days, and I still run our social if anyone cares, but I just find it interesting that we get a very unusual follower list. Sometimes they care about books, and sometimes they just care about vag.
Yeah. So anyway, our book this month was about the book. I'm just getting it. Stolen Focus: Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeply Again by Johann Hart. And this was suggested by one of my mods, Rocket Soup, who seemed profoundly moved by it, and I, in turn, was profoundly moved to maybe just quit everything and get off the internet.
Well, I will tell you the author did. So the author, I looked at his Twitter today when I posted a tweet about the book show today. And he's like, I'm getting off Twitter until 2024 because I have a book I'm writing. And I'm like, all right.
Wow.
But I've seen people do that. Like, I can't remember who did it recently. I think Mallory, who wrote Monster, she wrote. I think she went off. I know Neil Gaiman temporarily quit social every once in a while to work on something.
I mean, I think that's the way to do it. Like, okay, so the premise of the book is basically telling us why our attention is being stolen and how it's harming us as a society. And one of the examples the author uses is that he went completely offline for 3 months. No, he literally had a phone only for emergencies. He put it in a lockbox, and he was not online. He didn't have a computer, nothing. He could only write on his computer, no Wi-Fi at all, for 3 months. And it sounded like the best thing I've ever heard because I dream about it a lot, to unplug and just go away all the time. So now he's saying he gets off 6 months in a year total. And I think it's the smartest thing I've ever read. And I had so many wonderful, profound realizations, especially about some of the problems with our society right now. And I just found the book to be really fascinating and is going to hopefully be fuel for me to change my lifestyle just a bit to try to retain my focus and make more things that are long term versus immediate. What did you feel, Bonnie?
I have a lot of thoughts about this book. One, I agree with you, but also I understand, especially as creators who are constantly having to promote our work because we don't necessarily have an on-call publicity person or
Yes.
whatever. You know this from writing books as well as doing shows, is that you have to constantly be online to promote your stuff. But
Uh-huh.
also, if you want others to promote your stuff, you have to be conscious of the fact that you have to use your Twitter
Mm-hmm.
to signal boost your friends, but also, or signal boost people that you think are doing cool stuff. Doesn't have to be your friends. But then at the same time, you want to be part of the social part of social media
Mm-hmm.
where you interact with people. And I would say on the whole, I try to keep it positive. I don't post anything negative. I don't post about religion or politics. I do post about, trans youth and protecting them, and also about being gay because I only recently came out as bi. So I still feel like it's my role to be a positive influence when there's still kids committing suicide because they think they're weird and they don't realize being gay is okay. I mean, especially now, right? When all those
Yeah.
places are like trying to ban
Oh
whatever
my
gay.
God. Well, the world is going a very bad way, and I think
I
that's what
mean,
I have a couple of quotes I want to read because no, other than just okay, yes, I know that social media steals your focus, and if you read John Cleese's biography, he said
oh yeah.
interruption is the death of creativity, and so this book has wonderful sections going through it. Every single chapter has something really informative. Especially about creativity, which I'd like to talk about later, but like just profound, I think personally, the things that really added up for me is that uh, basically you can't have a functioning society when nobody is focusing on anything. And
Hmm.
that's the thing. And here's a great quote. There's evidence that these sites are now severely harming our ability to come together as a society and identify our problems and to find solutions in ways. They are damaging not only our attention, but our collective attention. And so that's what I was thinking the other day. I was so frustrated that, you read about certain pieces of literature in history, like the one that revolutionized the meatpacking industry and unionized a bunch of people
Oh,
by Upton Sinclair. What's it?
yeah, it
Was
was
it
The Jungle.
The Jungle? Right. That book, that one piece of entertainment, transformed the lives of millions of people, and more importantly, rallied them together to change the establishment. Right.
Mhm, mhm.
And you look at Rachel, the Silent Spring, the book where they banned DDT because it was ruining birds' eggs, right?
Yep.
That book came out, Silent Spring. It came out again. That one piece of literature and that one thing made people come together and change something. Change, basically, let's be honest, industry and capitalism. So the only way you can change capitalism is you rise up against it and push against it, right? And so if you look at what we've been through the last several years, especially like COVID and, just I can name 10,000 things.
Yeah.
You can see that I don't know what in the world it would take now to get people to rise up. I mean, we have
See, that's the problem. It's like which people do you want to rise up? Because I think social media did a pretty good job of having people rise up, but in the wrong way.
well, okay, you're right. Absolutely, you're right there.
I
I mean,
mean, I this is the first time in my lifetime I've ever seen a group of people storm the White House and
true,
break in. So
true, true.
not that that's a positive. I'm just saying that did incite change. The problem too is we live in a world now where newspapers and news sites have zero power. Most people are getting their information on Twitter trends or Facebook, which is not doing a great job of checks and balances. We
Yeah.
also live in a country where we have vastly different political groups fighting each other on a
And
constant basis.
everyone's being radicalized because of the way that the way the internet is
Yeah,
constructed. That's right. Yeah.
and also the predominance of misinformation and people also just not having the attention span or the I guess the encouragement of getting their facts from other places. So,
Yeah.
I mean, as a journalist, and I've told you this a million times, as a professional journalist, my whole adult life, I thought I was doing something great. And then, and I still reported about science. I reported about robotics. I reported about AI. Not just entertainment and fluffy stuff, but that, by the way, isn't always fluffy either, because you're dealing with the Me Too movement and all that. But honestly, I had to quit being a journalist because I suddenly found myself being told by editors, oh, instead of writing an obituary for this, who was it? It was like a famous poet that had died. I can't remember who it was. They said, "Can you write the obit for Bub the cat, because that'll get more hits." That'll get more hits. So it's all about what will get hits. And also, I mean, I don't want to badmouth CNET. I was there for 7 years as a full-time reporter. I loved my work there.
Well, now you're going to be replaced with chat. You're going to be replaced with AI now. No, they are literally using that AI.
I know. I don't work there anymore, and they got bought. So CBS sold them in 2021 to Red Ventures. Which is a content farm. They're not a media group. They're just basically a company that buys up other companies. And CNET started using AI, but didn't tell anyone they were using AI, and they got caught by Forbes. And it sucks too, because there's still people there I respect, and I feel like it's not their fault that they're having to test out AI. But we know from the last few weeks, AI doesn't. That's not a good replacement, because AI, like the Bing AI, was like destroy all humanity, and like and like other AI that are trying to quote unquote report.
But AI is made by people, and those people's is biased. If there's a select number of people, and that AI is made by the people and will have the sensibilities of people. So you could see there's a lot of instances where AI and even Google, their internal AI was biased against people of color. You know, their photo selections, all of these things. So
definitely. I mean, and just as a side note, if you want a really good journalistic look at AI and what's happening, watch John Oliver last week tonight. He just he did a whole segment on AI chatbots this week, and it was hilarious, but also extremely accurate. So
yeah, it was great. And he wasn't like, "Oh my gosh, this is the devil. Like this is going to ruin society." I like that part.
Yeah, he does it with a sense of humor, so you don't think the world is just burning. But on full disclosure, I've been doing freelance as an AI ghostwriter, so I actually write AI stuff to make it look like it's not AI. So I'm part of the problem, is what I'm trying to say.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it seems like that might be the way that a lot of people are going. You know, they're going to do a first draft, and I mean, Art's first draft. And then I was like, well, I haven't written a novel because it's so hard to write. Is it really that upsetting to have somebody do that first draft work? I mean, yes, it is, because it's not your creativity that you're not telling the story only you could write. But at the same time, you know, just enjoyment wise, it's nice to just get over that hump.
I mean, I will say too that in the John Oliver special, he has an AI write an Eminem rap song about cats, and it's actually really good. So I don't like Eminem. So I was like, yeah, I can see AI doing that. But then you have AI and art that it's basically scraping art from the internet, and it's taking other people's art and making it into something else, and they don't get credit. So there's just a lot of legal stuff to go around with AI. But when I was reading this book, I was like, okay, yeah, we have short ass attention spans. We can't focus on anything. But also, I think we tend to rely on things we didn't used to before, like Alexa, Siri, stuff like that. Where, you know, when you have a kid, and again, I have zero experience in this other than just being a very cool aunt, is that when kids ask you, why is this? Why is this? Why is this? Why is this? And parents have been shoving them over to Alexa to ask all the questions. And it just makes me a little sad, because there was a study done recently where more and more infants and toddlers were calling Alexa mommy, because they couldn't get parent attention to just answer dumbass kid questions.
But that's also an interesting point here, because he spends 3 weeks or 3 months on the beach in Provincetown. And a lot of his musings are things that are really resonating with me. Maybe it's middle age, I don't know, but it's like, we're running so fast. Are we even appreciating anything that we're doing along the way? And because the way society is that, you know, you have to work so much to make it, in this world. You can't spend the quality time with your children. You can't read a book in a thoughtful way because you know you have time to read it and get to another one eventually. Like the speed at which we move seems to I don't know anybody's like, yeah, I love it. I love being able to skim the surface of life because I don't have the time or focus to be able to really drill down into the things that mean something to me. And I noticed that, you get on your Feedly and I read 100, headlines of articles, but am I absorbing any of it? If any of it
Yeah.
actually changing my brain or the way I think, or am I learning anything? No, I probably don't remember what I just read.
I mean, on an interesting note, when you would go to J school, when you go to journalism school, they
Yeah.
teach you this is old school journalism, right? For newspapers. In the first paragraph of any news article, it's supposed to give the who, what, why, when, or no, the who, what, when, where, and then the rest of the article is the why. Why did this happen? Why did this occur? Blah, blah, blah. And now journalism is your headline has to be SEO approved, meaning that it has to come up at the top of the search in Google. And that usually happens because you have algorithm words that basically beat or cheat the algorithm.
Yeah.
And then your first paragraph has to be clickbait, if not your headline.
Yep.
And
Yep.
also, the journalists don't write their own headlines. If you read Washington Post or New York Times or any of those places, they don't write the headlines. There's someone that writes the headline for you. And
Yeah.
so I always had that problem working at CNET, especially with science articles, where I'm like, can we not clickbait this science article because this is a science article? I really don't want it to be like people not getting the gist of what it's really about. But that's the nature of news and journalism right now. That is at least commercial journalism. I'm not talking about blogs and stuff like that, but like stuff where, it's considered to be factual or considered to be trustworthy. It's more based on how many clicks can you get. And by the way, bending to the advertising overlords is nothing new. We had to do that in print.
Of course not.
We had to do that in print media too. But at least in print media, there's no AI algorithm back things saying, okay, how can I convince you to do this, or how is this going to structure how you see news from now on because you clicked on this one article. When you read magazines or newspapers, you are in control. When you're online, which I
You're
think
not in control, because
Not
I
at
love
all.
there's all these, I mean, you have to read this because it's going to make you radically against a lot of capitalistic things. I mean, here's a great quote. This is the business model that built and sustains the sites on which we spend so much of our lives. The technical term for the system is surveillance capitalism. And so their job is to get as much of your attention all the time as possible. And really, when I back up again, I back up and I'm like, isn't that all of our lives, right? Like we're working so hard in order to consume things and make corporations richer. And our attention is being used as fodder to build, to line other people's pockets. I mean, everything I've ever done on Twitter, I was very fortunate in getting some brand deals or whatever to be able to pay for my time on Twitter. Most people don't. So we're just giving away our time, the most precious thing we have, to these companies so a bunch of people can own private jets. And it's very discouraging.
That's what happened when Elon took over, right? When people were saying, hey, we're not clients, we're not the customer, we're the content. And I think once people started to get that in their brains, here's the thing, I'm still on Twitter. I don't care that Elon's in charge. I just sort of blocked him, so I just don't see his stuff. Even though he asked to have his algorithm change, the algorithm at Twitter changed, so all of his tweets would basically be at the top, like you couldn't escape his tweets. He also fired all the people that were in charge of privacy, that were in charge of making
child exploitation.
All of that. So I think we're going to see some interesting government people start take notice, because that's a big no-no. You can't just erase that. There's legislation behind children being on the internet, or even adults. There's no laws yet with data mining, which I think is interesting.
Well, that was interesting because Rocket Soup just who recommended the book cut and paste one of the things I actually cut and paste too. So not only are these companies trying to get our attention, but we really are just paper cuttings of ourselves. Inside of Facebook servers, inside Google servers, there's a little voodoo doll, a model of you. It starts not looking like much like you. It's sort of a generic model of a human, but then they're collecting all of your clicks, your hair droppings, everything you search for, every little detail of your online life, your Gmail. They're reassembling all that metadata you don't think means anything to make a doll that looks more and more like you. And then they're going to sell things to the doll.
Yep.
It is so creepy
Yeah.
And it makes me want to install. I'm going to install like some kind of anonymous browser, and I treat bigger social media almost only like output. Like
Hmm.
I really uninstalled it all from my phone. And getting an Apple Watch has actually really helped because I don't feel the compulsive need to carry my phone with me all the time because I could see a text and that would be the most immediate thing I need to look at. And I can see the time and
Yep.
there's no other excuse to hold my phone if I'm around my kid or whatever. And it's actually been
Yep.
very good.
I will say Apple Watch, just as a side note, because I'm that morbid true crime girl. You should always have some sort of either it's a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or some sort of watch that shows your GPS or shows where you've been. So if you're brutally murdered, they can find your body. If they
Oh
don't,
yeah.
but here's the other thing, because this actually happened in the Murdoch trial. I don't know if you've been following that
Oh yes, yes,
about.
yes.
Yeah. So he had a Fitbit on his person. And when he was like going to places to say he wasn't going, they tracked him. So it's
Wow.
like, yeah. So if you're going to commit murder, I would say get rid of all your online trackers. If you think you're a target, which is just all women and children, then you should definitely wear a bracelet like that. But
Yeah.
on the other side of data mining, because I actually quit a job because the data mining was so severe and so invasive, and our customers didn't realize what we were doing, that I was worried I would get subpoenaed at some point for
Wow.
misusing information because I was just a community manager. I was a social media
Wow.
director and community manager, which used to be you're on message boards, right? Or you're on
Yeah.
social and you're on seeing what people are saying about your product and interacting with them in a positive way. But this was like, I could tell when customer number one was buying something at a certain store, what they bought, how much of they bought it, how much have they been buying it that week or that month or that year. And then I had to have emails that were personally addressing that so they would feel special, is what I was told. But if I ever
Wow.
got an email like that, I'd be like, oh shit, like, is someone bugged my apartment? Like, how do they know that?
Yeah.
And it's scary because, in essence, if you have Facebook on your phone, even when you delete it, they still have access to your microphone. I don't think people realize that, but they do. And
Yeah.
so, and same with if you
Well,
have
they can know you're
Alexa.
pregnant. They can know you're pregnant, and they start giving you
Oh,
even
yeah.
before you're pregnant. I think that's
I mean, and also, I think smart TVs can also record stuff even when you don't know they're recording stuff.
yeah.
So it's one of those things too that is it convenience has taken over our curiosity for privacy, or is it because I know a lot of people are like, I don't care. Like, I don't care if I have ads that are directed to me, that's fine. But they don't realize that there's so much more going on behind the machine.
Yeah, I don't think
And
people don't realize it, and they don't realize how valuable they are. I was just thinking, it just occurred to me, like, I think combining this with just a lifestyle, like if you're taking, I go places, and I'm like, oh, look at those people, they're taking pictures of their kids somewhere, they're taking pictures of the sunset, and I'm like, now this paper doll analogy is like, you as a person are not experiencing that sunset. You're giving the sunset to the paper doll, and that is going to prevent me from taking pictures anywhere without really absorbing it myself. I mean, because we are constructing essentially AIs of ourselves so that we
yeah,
can be exploited. It's very strange.
I will say though, it's gotten more and more sophisticated, but it's not anything new. Like Flickr predates Instagram, and Flickr would do that as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
anything that you did on TikTok, trust me, it was on Vine, it was on Periscope, it was on every other video app you had that predates this. Friendster, which predates MySpace, was doing it. So I
yeah.
just think because there's so many more people that are doing it, and there's a whole,
It's
I
easier to
don't
aggregate. It's just
know.
easier to grab and aggregate.
And also, there's generations of kids who grew up with this, so they don't know any better.
Yeah.
And that's a thing too. I would assume that if you're a parent or a responsible, fun aunt like me, I am always telling my nieces, you might not want to post that really revealing bikini
Yes.
shot on Instagram
Yeah.
because that's forever, and it can also be copied and deep faked and put on a porn site. So maybe don't do that. But
I
they
mean,
don't.
one of my favorite pieces of fan art I've ever gotten was sent to my house for some reason.
Uh-oh.
And it was a polite, can you please sign these photos? I'm a huge fan. And there was one of Buffy, one of Supernatural, and one of my head photoshopped onto a lovely naked woman.
Serious?
And I was like, did they think it was me or did they
I
do the
mean,
Photoshop?
I'm still waiting for your signature, by the way, on those photos I sent.
It-
No, I'm kidding.
I-
I'm kidding. No, I don't understand why
it was
fans
not
do
my body, by
that.
the way.
Okay, well, I mean, I usually get photoshopped onto like the Michelin Man. No one ever is nice to me when they
Oh.
Photoshop my face. But I will say too, we live in a world where everyone's used to being on camera, or everyone wants to be on camera. I will say, cam culture, which in a way was a saving grace for a lot of sex workers during COVID. So I'm not anti-cam, I'm not anti-OnlyFans, but we do live in a culture now where being on front of a camera and showing your life
Uh-huh.
is standard. It's like
Yeah.
it's like the default
But
where
who are you broadcasting to? I mean,
exactly,
that's and what do you
exactly.
and that's the problem with teen girls, especially. I mean, there's a
Oh,
direct correlation. I read a really interesting article about direct correlation of social media devastating girls' self-confidence, rising suicide rates, self-harm,
yeah.
all of this because the thing that gets the most clicks is not necessarily the most healthy to exist as. And
Oh
unfortunately,
no.
and I'm actually really happy. My daughter just decided she doesn't want any pictures done of her in
Oh,
general, and I've decided not to post any online ever of her until she wants them to be online. And I am really glad she doesn't know how to pose for pictures, but a lot of my friends, their
yeah.
kids will like hit it and they're posting them publicly, and I'm like, I don't want to judge you, but I don't know if that kid is going to be the same kid if they weren't trained to be demonstrative to just a bunch of people online.
Yeah, and also I think it's dangerous in a way too. And again, maybe I'm just sort of being old lady get off my lawn, but I was taught that everything you do, because we were poor. I mean, I grew up
Yeah.
poor. So everything you do should be monetized, especially if you're in a creative industry like you're a writer. You
Hmm.
have to find ways to pay rent. And I think that's fine. But internet culture has turned that into you're not selling a product, you're selling yourself. And that's a
Yeah.
little dangerous. But also, the danger lies in the fact of, and this is again, this isn't technology isn't the devil, it's how you use it is
Yes.
good or bad. And I do feel like maybe some parents are just trusting the internet a bit too much until something
Oh my
really bad
gosh.
happens. Like when I look at true crime stuff that involve teen girls, a lot of it is grooming done over internet, grooming done over
Yes.
social media, over YouTube channels, over whatever. And when I was a teenager, I was pretty savvy, but I probably would have posted some stuff I shouldn't have. I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely stuff that's coming up on YouTube of me in the 90s that I wish no one had recorded. So there's,
Yeah.
but we live in a time now where it's just the default
I
to do
know.
that. And
But
I get worried about
you're
that.
too young. Yeah, they're too young to really
Yeah.
have no long term what that's going to mean.
But also,
I
this book also talks about the generations of kids that have the attention span of fruit flies
Yeah.
because they're used to this culture and they don't realize that their attention span is fleeting.
Yeah, there was a whole article there was a whole chapter in this book about how we have captive children. We don't let them, risk things and don't let them kind of go out and play in the neighborhood by themselves. And I was like, oh, I don't know if this really actually applies to, I guess in tangent because so many kids are just on screens right now. And
Yeah.
so, but it's also like just a mental I mean, that's my theory about why high schoolers are terrible because they're old enough to actually be competent and do stuff and be productive. And yet we keep them in this semi cage, teaching them stuff they really haven't seen how they apply it to the world. And they're frustrated and they're
Well,
capable. So that's that's my theory of teenagers.
and totally, like, I mean, I wrote that book, Girls Against Girls,
Oh, yes.
in 2009, and I was like, oh shit, I need to write a sequel to this because
You should actually.
the text section that I had in there is does it refer to MySpace? Maybe not, but it does refer to deep fakes. It does refer to revenge porn and all of that. So
Yeah,
it's like at least I was sort of up to date on 2000. At least actually it's probably cutting edge considering it was 2009. But
absolutely.
but I will say like, and again, maybe this is just morbid brain taking over, but I watch so much true crime and the way that kids make themselves bigger targets, a
Yeah.
lot of it has, and I'm not saying they should like Rapunzel themselves. Like, I don't think they should be hidden away from the public. They just have to
No.
know in the back of their mind this could attract some seedy ass people, and just be sure to, like, if you're going to go somewhere and say, ooh, check out this cool swimming pool that I'm at, post it after you're gone. Don't post
Yeah.
it while you're still there.
Well, I think
Stuff
that
like
kind of
that.
that also dovetails into another thing that really resonated me with this book because it was about the creative process and how our, social media and the way that we use the internet is very
Mhm.
disruptive and destructive. And for me, like I love a couple of things he wrote were really wonderful, just about what makes us happy as people, right?
Yeah.
And getting into that state of flow where we're creating and we don't really care about what comes out at the end. It's just the state of being in a moment and in an activity that is so engrossing that
Mm.
it's all of you. And that's really hard to get into with this world. And it's hard for kids to get into because, again, they're even hyper online. They're more online than we are. And it's kind of sad because I think a lot of people, including myself now, I'm just like, you got to get back to that. That's what I'm always craving. And I feel bad that some kids are never taught that that's something awesome because they're always going to be on screens getting that dopamine response. And they're not
Yeah.
going to understand that long-term things are where you find satisfaction and happiness.
Yeah, I think also I like, and again, this is me being Grandma Bonnie, but I stopped going to concerts because I was tired of looking at everyone's phones recording
Oh,
the
yeah.
concert. So unless you're in the band, backstage, or in the front row, you're just gonna get a lot of views of different kinds of cameras recording different angles of whatever concert you're at, and you forget like actually just be there, like just be there. And I
Yeah.
don't know if people's memories are shot, so they feel like they have to do that, or if it's one of those, if a photo doesn't exist, it never happened kind of mentality.
Hmm.
But it's all like shitty recordings that end up on YouTube or
You're never going to
TikTok,
watch it again. You're going
and
to
you're never
upload
gonna watch
it.
it. And here's
Yeah.
the thing, I did that when I was at Go-Go's, but I was like in a top floor VIP booth and not in front of anybody. So at
Yeah.
least I was like trying to, not be that person. But I don't
Yeah.
know, it's like that, but also attention span. And I do want to briefly talk about the ADHD situation in this book because
Yeah, because I actually want to know about that because I know that you have that
yeah,
you have
yeah,
ADHD, and
yeah.
I know that there was kind of a caveat about this, and yeah.
Well,
What
he
were you
didn't.
thinking?
He didn't interview any neurodiverse people to talk about it. It was
Yeah.
all neurotypical. And I think you have to be careful with that. I think you have to be careful of that in any realm, right? If you want to know about gay culture, don't talk to straight people, talk to gay people.
Yep.
And if you want to know what it's like to be deaf or blind, talk to those people. If you want to know what it's like to I shouldn't go there, be abused, you don't talk to like some journalists, you talk to the person, you know what I mean? You go to the source.
Yes. You need to have real life experience.
And I think sometimes, unless you have a child that has it, or unless you have it, you don't really understand it. And you think it's just kids being hyper, which is not what it is. You think it's just easily distracting, which it is, but then we become hyper focused on other things we shouldn't be focusing on. So there
Yeah.
is still a hyper focus. So I haven't lost my focus. It just travels to different things. Like,
Yeah.
a perfect example. I'm researching a book right now. Like, I am in the process of writing a book because I didn't do one last year, and I always try to write and publish a book every year. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. This is what I'm doing, and I'm gonna do some. It's gonna be like a horror murder mystery thing. But there was something very specific I wanted to look up, and I think it was something to do with, can you put cocaine in body cream, and what will that do if you put it on? It's basically, I'm trying to figure out different ways to kill people in interesting ways.
Oh, okay. Great.
Which, I mean, I did that for Hunt a Killer, but I don't have that job anymore as an excuse, so I have to be careful when I talk about it.
Nah, you just go for
But
it. You're Bonnie.
I will say Wikipedia has been my rabbit hole destination for everything you can imagine, from ESP stuff, UFO stuff, true crime stuff, looking up dancers that existed in the silent movie era. And I will just spend hours. So it's like my TikTok in a way, where people are, that phenomenon of lost time when you're on TikTok and you look at animal stuff or cute things, and then
Yeah.
5 hours have gone by and you don't realize it. That's how Wikipedia is for a lot of us who have ADHD. Because
Oh, I
we will
love
just,
Wikipedia. I will just go
I
down and
mean,
down and down and
at
down and
least
down.
I'm learning something. But I will say with the, how the ADHD, just to go back, how ADHD is portrayed in this book, I had a little issue with it because it is a very neurotypical person thing, is to talk about over medication.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what should have been addressed here. The problem we're having right now with the Adderall shortage is not because people with actual ADHD, there's more and more people getting diagnosed and they're getting the treatment they need. It's
Yeah.
people abusing Adderall because they've learned in high school all the way up to their adult life that they're great study buddies.
Uh-huh.
And that's what they take. And you can get Adderall illegally very, very easily. And that's why there's a shortage. It has nothing to do with kids being overly medicated, because I came from a family that didn't believe in medication for anything, doesn't believe
Yeah.
in mental illness, doesn't believe in depression, doesn't believe in therapy, doesn't believe in medication. So it took me, 4 decades to find out I was
Oh,
ADHD?
it took me 10 years to get on a low dose of Lexapro, and my God, I
Uh,
would have had such a more functional life if I
I mean,
had been on.
I try not to go back and think about that because I do like the things I accomplished. I do like who I am now, but like back then, I lost so many friends and so many relationships because people are like, why can't you just focus? Why do you always interrupt people? Why are you talking about 50 topics in one
Yeah.
hour? Like anyone that watches, that listens to this show or listens to anything I've done with you,
Yeah.
where we have a discussion, we will talk about 50,000 topics. And that's probably a bit of my fault because that's just how my brain works. But I enjoy people who talk like that. So
Yeah,
for
I mean,
me,
listen, there was a little bit, this guy,
yeah,
he seems to be either single or maybe just partnered. He definitely doesn't have kids, and he
no.
has one nephew,
Yeah, poor
and that's
nephew.
who he uses all the time as an example. And I appreciate that he worries for his nephew, but he's not there day to day raising a child.
Exactly.
And this was interesting. I just looked up his Wikipedia. He was actually suspended from the Independent after plagiarizing and fabricating things for 10 years and making malicious edits to the Wikipedia pages of journalists who had criticized his conduct.
How did he do that? You can't do that on Wikipedia. They will block you if
I
you
don't
click it.
know.
Though I will tell you, when Trump became president and I wrote Crafting with Feminism, someone changed my Wikipedia to say that I had a violent feminist agenda. And I was like, oh, yeah, you could keep that.
What? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because I was like, I've never been called a violent feminist. Like, I'm not like, it's not like Mosh Pit Bonnie goes down and just starts punching people. But I don't know. Anyway, you're totally right with this. Because I didn't know about the plagiarism part.
I didn't either. I just Wikipedia. I
Man,
was like, whoa.
I guess I should have read his Wikipedia entry before I read the book. I usually do that. But
Yeah.
honestly, it's like, this book wasn't just a self-help book. Because so when I went into it, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a self-help book on how to focus. Nope.
No,
No,
no.
no, no. It's stuff we already know, but we still don't do. Like,
It was well put together and definitely worth reading, like for
yeah,
sure.
it was just interesting how he took it to a global thing, which I don't think you can really. I mean, I appreciate activism. Do not get me wrong. I am so happy that the younger generations are going to the streets and taking up, causes that are definitely going to affect them as adults. And I'm really sorry we ruined the planet for them. But I also know from this book, it seemed a little not realistic
Yeah.
of the, hey, we just all have to get together as society. Here's the
No,
thing.
he's like, hey, we need to all. We also the suggested regulations that he
I know that's never going to
suggests
happen.
he puts on Facebook and Twitter. I'm like, no, it's not going to happen, dude.
Isn't he from the Netherlands? He's not from the United States, right?
Yeah, and I'm reading his Wikipedia right now, and there's an interesting there's a
Because
book. He wrote
Netherlands,
another book called Lost Connections about depression and anxiety,
yeah,
and he has an extreme skepticism of antidepressants. So he seems to be anti-medication.
he does. He does. And
So
also
just
that
read the ADHD part with skepticism if you read the book. The rest of the book
he's,
is wonderful, and there are
he's
some good points in all of it.
he's also writing a new book about addictions where I'm like, oh
Oh
shit.
boy,
Which
we're gonna
you should not write about
he's
addictions
Swiss and English.
unless you have an addiction. I honestly
Yeah,
don't believe people that have never been addicted to anything should be writing those books, but
I mean he might have. Listen, maybe that's why he did all that stuff in the past, where he
maybe he's
was.
addicted
Yeah.
to plagiarism. Maybe he's a compulsive liar.
Who knows? But he did write a very good
Yeah,
book. Now, I do
yeah.
want, I want to call out three things that I really, because I wrote
Okay.
Embrace Your Weird, my kind of self-help creativity book, and a lot of what he wrote about that really resonates and is one of the things that I was trying to get people to get to that state of flow. And he puts it very easily. If you want to get down to the state of flow, you need to do three core components. The first thing you need to do is choose a clearly defined goal. Second, you have to be doing something that is meaningful to you. And third, it will help if you're doing something that is at the edge of your abilities, but not beyond them, which I thought that last thing was something so interesting. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say after people read this book, they should definitely read your book, because
Yep.
I loved your book. Also, your
Oh,
book
thanks.
has your book, and here's the thing: there's certain I think you and I talked about this once before that I have a strong addiction to self-help books I never read. So like
Oh
I
yeah.
have lots of self-help books, but the ones I do read, like You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero is really good. Your book is really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a book called Don't Give a Fuck or something.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah. That was a good
yeah,
book.
yeah. But Fuck Feelings was another one. Here's the thing: every self-help book has its own kind of thing they're trying to get across. But your book had a sense of humor. It's also very interesting to point out that a lot of people who are creative, who do creative things, still struggle with creative
Yeah.
blocks and still struggle with, like, perfect example, COVID. So
Yeah.
COVID happened. I cannot tell you how many friends I had that were like, oh, now that COVID's thing, we're all quarantined, you can have all the time in the world to start your Twitch channel, write a book, write a comic, write a screenplay, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, that's not it. We all have 24 hours a day. It just depends on how you use it, right? It doesn't matter if you're
Yeah.
quarantined or not.
Also,
Oh,
it was not easy to create when we're going through an international crisis. I'm
when you
sorry.
think the world is going to end, the last thing you want to do is work on a craft or a book that's going to take 2 months to finish because
Yeah.
you don't know if you're going to be alive in 2 months. I will tell you though, it was the only time I gave zero fucks about anything was during COVID, which was a
Yeah.
great relief to me because I just overthink everything and I take everything a little too seriously and then I get
Yeah.
into a depression spiral and all that. And imposter syndrome's always huge with me. During
Mhm.
COVID, I was like, "Oh, we're all going to die." It was almost like a I don't know how you
I
it's
agree.
like
I mean, yeah, it was very refreshing in that it's like we don't there a lot of the long-term anxiety I had all about
yeah,
the future. It's like, hey, there could be no future. Let's just
yeah,
enjoy the moment. And it was very in a
exactly.
horrible way centering.
I mean, yeah, I was just gonna say it, even the playing field, but in a way, it took away the pressure that I always put on myself about the future.
Yeah.
I just turned 50 last year and I'm like, oh shit, none of what I thought was gonna happen in my 50s is happening right now. But I also didn't think I'd live this long. So it's
Mm.
kind of like, okay, COVID put me in a space where I'm like, okay, well, if we all die tomorrow, then you really do live your day like every day's the last day on earth. And you
Yeah.
really do start telling people you love that you love them. And you
Mhm.
really do start to take things that you took for granted in a busy, crazy world a bit, you take it to heart more because you are forced to be in the present because you don't know if there's a tomorrow. And
Yeah.
as morbid as that sounds, and as much as I hated COVID for making so many of my friends and family sick, people died. It's still going on. It's still horrible. At least the silver lining of COVID was I learned how to appreciate the present and I learned how to appreciate things that really do matter. And getting clicks, getting favorites, getting hearted, getting liked, none of that mattered to me. What mattered to me was I was there for my friends, that I finally got on antidepressants, that I finally got, more help for ADHD. I finally got therapy. Like I finally cared about things,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I cared about the right things, I think is what I'm trying to
Yes.
say.
I
Yeah.
agree. No, the same thing. And also, like I do live a much slower life, and I'm not so anxious about the future now. And I probably not as impressive, quote unquote, to people who in my career were that's their most important thing. But at the same time, I feel so much happier because and he actually does this. There's a wonderful quote that he has in this book. I'm sorry, I just need to get back to it about like nobody's on their deathbed thinking about how much they contributed to the economic the economy.
No.
Nobody's doing that. They're regretting how much time they spent with their family. They're regretting that they never did that one thing, that went to that one trip they wanted. They never, it's all personal stuff. That's what you regret on your deathbed, and like that's, at least a small gift that we can have from this horrible crisis to have put that to heart and not go back to the bullshit that we were putting up with or the rat race we were running before. And most people don't get to that point before they're on their deathbed or
I know.
maybe retired or going through a huge life crisis. So, you know, I guess looking at it like that could be at least useful going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, again, this book was really great. I just want to my 2 cents of it as someone that has ADHD, someone that suffered with dyslexia since I could read, and I still suffer from it. If it wasn't for Grammarly and good
Mhm.
editors, my books would be impossible to read. So it's like I'm just glad that it's being addressed. I just wish it had been addressed a little bit more sensitively or a little more accurately.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the book is just so kumbaya, let's all hold it. I sound like a Trump supporter when I say this. I don't mean to. I'm just very skeptical
It's a
of
little pie in the sky in that it's not actionable. Like, it
it's
doesn't feel realistic at
like if
all.
we were in the 60s and 70s, sure. But we are not a hippie culture. We are not a culture of kumbaya. We are a culture of everybody has their own kind of agenda and whatever thing they believe in that they believe to be the best. It's kind of like villains never think of themselves as villains. They always think of
No.
themselves as misunderstood heroes. It's kind of like that, right? So you can have some horrible viewpoints, but the problem here is that you can't just change an entire society. I mean, think of jury duty, right? It's impossible to get 12 people to decide what they want for lunch in a
Yeah,
jury
but that,
room,
I
let
think
alone.
that's part of the point of the book is that there have been mass uprisings because certain incidents. I mean, look at Black Lives Matter. Like we have had those incidences during social
Yes.
media times. There are trigger points. It's just like it requires a lot more. And
I'm not saying you shouldn't be active in activism and you shouldn't try for a better society. It's just what he was suggesting in this book
yeah, some of
seemed
them
a
are like unrealistic. Yeah.
very unrealistic. And again, I agree with you. I think during COVID we got some really good stuff with Black Lives Matter. I think the gay community came together really well. And even today, when they're trying to suppress women's rights,
Oh
reproductive
my
rights,
God. Yeah. At
and
least we're yeah.
I mean, at least we have enough people that are going to stand up and say, "Oh, fuck no, we're not standing for this." And I'm glad that more people are vocal about that. It's just using things that happened in the past as what we can do now is
It's
unrealistic because
unrealistic. Yeah.
we're a different society. And the only reason that the meatpacking industry got changed because of Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, was because the president's kid had him read it.
Wow.
And the president cared. So, like Obama, right? He had his own book club. He always talks about what books he's reading every year.
Yeah.
If we still had him, then maybe Trump, I'm sure he reads.
He's never read a book. I
He
think he
reads.
brags about it. I don't think he can read.
Again, that shows you where the country went because we have a non-reader as the
Well,
president.
I mean, I think the country went that way because of inherent racism against a black president. But that, let's not get into that.
I agree. But that's a good point. That's a good point. So in this book, him saying we can come together as a society to change things. Yeah, if we agreed on
Yeah.
stuff and we
Yeah.
also had leaders who were into changing things for the better as opposed. And again, we live in a country where our leaders change so often that we could have a president that does great things and then the next guy just reverses everything.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're
So
not going to shave it. I would just urge everybody. I think it's a really good read, and I
I
hope that it
agree.
influences you to at least kind of, not be as be more mindful about what you're giving to technology and what you're getting out of it.
Yeah. And there's a great horror film. I'll put it in the comments when I find it. I can't remember what it was, but it's about a bunch of parents who follow someone's blog, a mommy blog that's basically saying, phones and the internet's evil, is making our kids evil. And they put all of their phones in a was it a lockbox?
Yeah.
And then something happens. It's like sinister, right? Like it's like the boogeyman starts attacking all the kids and they have no way of stopping it because their phones are locked up. It's like the weirdest movie, but it's also
Wow.
like,
Okay.
yeah, but it's also like one of those things where, yeah, locking your phones up, great, except if you have parents in the hospital or you have kids that are out doing
Yeah. No,
stuff, you need to be
it's
careful.
you don't, and also you don't want to be left behind because it's not like it's going away. Anyway, okay. Our
Anyway,
next month we are going to be streaming live on Twitch. I think on the last Tuesday of the month. And we will hopefully find new audience and have more people read along with us. This will always be uploaded to the podcast feed, and the Felicitations Book Club will be bigger and better going forward. Our next month is a book I've been wanting to read for a while. It's called Legends and Lattes, a novel of high fantasy and low stakes by Travis Baldree. And it looks so delightful. It's about an orc who opens a coffee shop in the city of Thune. It's like a no stakes fantasy, and I'm just really excited about
Okay.
it. It was a New York Times bestseller. It's huge on Book Talk, and I'm just excited to read it. I think it's going to be a fun, quick read. So everybody, get on that.
Yay. I'm
We will
excited to read.
convene.
I'm excited to see what top coffee an ogre would sell.
I mean, I hope there's some flavored lattes with like, raspberry broadsword.
Yeah, or a matcha with like, well, now I'm getting into witchcraft, but like matcha toadstools or something.
Yeah, exactly. So that hangout will be on March 28th. So
Cool.
just look for our feeds and we will see you later. Okay. Thanks everybody.
Yay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.